episode, we're talking about something that has literally changed my life. And when I started learning about it through my friend Brie Mosher, I then was able to start teaching other people. And I'm finding that my clients have been coming back to me in all aspects of life, business, love life, whether it comes down to like their relationship with their families, and they're able to recognize these qualities and characteristics that we're going to talk about today and kind of have these aha moments where it like lessens shame, it lessens guilt, it allows us to feel more energetic and kind of less hard on ourselves. So I invited Kayla on my team to come and talk about our own experiences with these feminine and masculine qualities and characteristics. Now, it has nothing to do with whether you're a man or a woman, and it has everything to do with the energy that we all kind of give off. You know, if you've ever seen somebody who's like energetic, happy go lucky, being playful and silly, be it a man or a woman, they're in their empowered feminine energy, right? If you have ever seen somebody who is taking leadership and authority, hey babe, we're gonna go here to go to that restaurant and, you know, let me get the door for you. And it's like empowered masculine energy. Again, regardless of male or female. If you've ever seen somebody who has been like, why does this always happen to me? I'm working so hard. Like, I'm so sick and tired of it, like, not working out the way I want. Disempowered feminine. And then when it comes to disempowered masculine, that can be that inner critic, that little voice inside of us, or you've seen it with other people in your life who are like aggressive, abrasive. They're, you know, probably talking louder than they need to. It's all hustle, grind, work hard, play hard, like that bullshit, right? And
Judgmental, critical.
yeah, this is awful. So, my hope is, as Kayla and I tell our personal stories today about these qualities and characteristics, how it's shown up in our lives, not only for ourselves, but we're also going to share with you some personal stories about other people who have been in our lives who have had these qualities and characteristics. Some we look up to and we embody, and others we kind of go, oof, sounds like my mother, you know, like, or whatever that may be, right? And our hope is that a couple of things. Number one, you're able to recognize these signs and symptoms within yourself. So, in the days when you are in that sort of disempowered energy, the hustle, the grind, the like, why does this always happen to me kind of martyr, you're able to recognize it. And we're going to teach you how to get out of it. But then we're also going to teach you how to stay in that empowered energy, that ability to be like, everything is so easy. I love life. Like, I'm feeling really grateful. I'm playful. And as you know, we need the balance of both in each and every day. But we hope that you'll be able to recognize not only these qualities within yourself, but also help you to recognize these qualities in potential clients, in potential lovers, mates, relationships, friendships, even within your own family. And I think the more that I've coached over the last few years, I think the more I'm recognizing that a lot of our family members have these qualities and characteristics, and it's actually where we get it from. We've learned it. So I think that's a great way to get started, Kayla. Do you wanna start giving your overview?
Yeah, I think it's helpful too. The way you described it is really relatable. And what helped me to think of it even on an even more simple matter, because when you're first getting started with all of this, if it's new, it feels overwhelming, right? There's a lot of words. And when you're in it and you're in those, what you could call negative emotions, when really like all emotions are welcome, it's hard to be like, oh, I'm in my masculine. Oh, I'm in my feminine. I'm in my empowered. I'm in my you're like, I just know I feel like shit right now and I'm overwhelmed. What the hell do I do?
Right, right.
So what really helps me is if I think of it simply with the masculine as the doing and the feminine as the feeling. That really
Mm,
helped me to make it more simple. And then, I like to bring in like my medical words and whatnot, but anytime I felt like I feel dysregulated, where things are just too much, there's just
mm,
too much going on, the doing feels negative,
mm,
meaning I feel those negative thoughts of I'm not doing enough, or you're doing too much, but not enough. So all the negative doing related to the masculine. And then with the feminine, it's all the painful emotions instead of, right? Instead of the I love this. I feel connected. I'm excited. I'm motivated. I feel like myself. It's more of that woe is me victim mentality. All these things are happening to me instead of life is like a video game. It looks like I'm about to level up because all the shit's coming my way must mean that I'm about to meet this next level of myself.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
hence
that's
my
really helped
sigh
me.
from this fucking last week. It's just
This
it's a
and mine
lot.
was this weekend. It was a and it was related to all of those things. All of
Mhm.
those things. Mine specific, and I'm still like coming off of the emotions of it. So hopefully I don't cry during this episode, but if I do, that's
Well, maybe
progress for
you.
me because I had shut off that crying for so long. But it stemmed for me back to how I saw like my mom and dad interact with each other and how I saw them take care of themselves and how I saw them be with us. And I didn't see my mom show lots of emotions. I didn't see how much she struggled.
Mm.
I saw how hardworking my dad was, and I took that on. So with my kids and with my husband, I was a super, super hard worker, right? Like I pushed myself to the max. Valedictorian, honors program, go get a graduate degree to be a PA. And then I was burning out as a mom of three and then not having fun in my marriage anymore because I was in my disempowered, like I was in a really disempowered feminine and masculine because I was taking on way too much of that masculine role in my marriage and sex wasn't fun anymore. Sex felt like a chore. Do you
Talk
have
about
something you want to add there?
give some examples of like before the sex you started talking about like I was in my disempowered masculine like and feminine. What was showing up aside from sex not feeling like a chore and
Yeah,
taking on too much?
the first two things that come to mind is a lot of judgment and criticism, both of myself and of my husband, meaning it was really hard to juggle working and family life. And so I had a lot of neck and shoulder pain, a lot of insomnia, a lot of anxiety because I did not know how to ask for what I needed. I didn't know how to say, I need help, and here's the exact help that I need in order to feel like I can keep up with all the things. So I would just try to do everything. I would just
Mm.
try to do it all, including like that sex is important in a marriage, but when you have kids and when you're working, especially when you're growing a business, whatever the case may be, it's so once we become parents, like it's so easy to lose ourselves and to forget like the things that felt fun and the things that felt effortless and that we enjoyed and that actually made it easier to work and to be inspired to work and be successful.
Mm.
It's like you slowly just lose focus of that.
Mm. I can relate to that. I feel like when when you were saying the words like I had a hard time asking for help. I think
Mhm.
that when I started on this journey probably 2010 is when I kind of got into 12-step recovery because my life came fucking crashing down. Like I was exactly as you described. Like sex felt like a chore I was in a 2.5 year relationship. I didn't trust him as a result of some cheating that he had done and the alcoholism that he had had and other addictions. But I was the one who was like spinning like a top. Like I was the one who had gotten let go from my job because I was being inconsistent. Like one day I'd show up early, another day I'd show up late, another day I would get my work in on time, another day I wouldn't even be able to get my work in, and it was because my I now know that my nervous system was dysregulated. Like I felt so overwhelmed by the feelings that I was feeling that it was very hard to focus. It was very hard to concentrate. I too had a lot of neck and shoulder pain. I had a lot of headaches. I had my first panic attack. Um, Fortunately, I've only had one more since, like in what's happened, almost 15 years. Um, because I've learned how to be able to manage that. But I think what I had no idea about then that I now know, and that's what trajected me into 12-step recovery, is I think my relationship with my mom and my dad were what was actually coming, which was making me attracted to this person. And the inconsistency, the not knowing where you stand, wondering when the other shoe is going to drop, taking on too many responsibilities in the household. We lived together, so, and that was the first time I'd lived with a man. It's been the last time since I've lived with a man. Like, not to say I wouldn't. I just think that I'm going to be smarter in that decision when it comes time. Um, I was paying all the bills. I was getting all the grocery shopping. I was overspending to compensate for the discontent and dysregulation I was seeing within him, and him feeling stressed and overwhelmed and anxious, and him resorting to other modalities like other women, alcohol, smoking, these things to try to mitigate how he was actually feeling. And when I look back at that time and I think about the correlation to, oh, the way that my parents were with me, I grew up in a different environment. I had really five parents, so to speak. I had mom and dad, my grandmother and my grandfather, but then I also had my uncle, who was actually at that time like 16 and grew up in the home with me. So I had a lot of people around me who, unfortunately, there were some really great, or fortunately, there were great qualities and characteristics, and I can go into that and what I think it taught me. But also, there were more qualities and characteristics that really harmed me and really hurt my self esteem, which made me open to this mindset of, if I do more, then I will be loved. If I do more, then I will be chosen. If I do more, then no harm will come to me, be it
If I
physically or
do
emotionally.
more, I will be safe ultimately, right?
Yeah, because ultimately
If I'm
that's,
in control of the situation, if I'm in control of everything, I can keep me safe, is
yeah.
what it really came down to for me. It was hard to get to that
Even as you're
literal.
saying that, I don't know if you picked up on your body language, but you guys can't see it, but she sort of like cocked her head, like, like it was like this like roundabout head movement. And I'm laughing because that's exactly how it was for me. It's like, if I do more and I'm in control, then I am safe. And you said something recently to a client of ours that said, the women want to feel safe. That is one of the, and that men, I think, don't understand that. They, especially empowered men who are like ethical and are of integrity, they're like, what the fuck? Like, how would she not feel safe around me? And it's like, well, for one, you're physically, like, you could snap me like a twig. Like, you're physically stronger than me.
Hmm.
But I'm talking emotions. Like, I want to know that if I open my heart to you, or open my legs to you, or I open my brain to you, that it is going to be well received with open arms and a calming, nurturing, kind of like what we would have wanted our mothers to do, and I'm sure what you do with your children. It's like, when they open up and they have big swings of emotion, that they're able to come like nestle into you, and that or your husband, and just feel very safe with talking about what's
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, you want to feel protected. Like you want to feel like it's okay to strip down all the layers and just be, right? It's that feminine. You need that masculine of the doing protective energy in those moments so that you can kind of lean into that softness and just be. And my husband too. Once I started to be able to do that for myself and with him,
Mm.
he started to soften up and be able to do that because there was a lot of reactivity between him and I. There was this, and I think this happens in a lot of marriages, is there's men have a lot of anger. It's like the go-to emotion. And that also stems from the upbringing. Like it's not typical, it's not the most common thing, just from a generational standpoint, for men to grow up learning how to identify their emotions and then express those emotions in healthy ways. And so it just comes out as anger because that's just like the default thing.
Yeah, or
And
even frustration, right? Because
yeah.
that like tone, that
Mhm.
little like, I'm annoyed. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then that for me would be a trigger because I grew up with my dad yelling and my dad spanking us. And so that showed up in my marriage. For women with my mom, right? That feminine, I had a hard time not only trusting women, but also being really vulnerable with women. Like I felt like I needed to give all the things in order for me to be worthy of their friendship. And then when they didn't give me all the things back, I'm like, well, and then I would judge them, right? I'm like, well, you don't care about me. You're not putting any effort in. But
Or
those were
like,
all unspoken expectations that I
yeah,
had.
or like I do all these things for you and you don't do
Yeah.
these things for me, whether we
Yeah.
say that or not.
Right.
I was in a long-term relationship, so to speak, because it was a friendship for 10 years with a woman who acted like that. That she'd be like, well, I do these things for you, but you do. And I remember when I started learning about disempowered, I was like, oh, fuck, this is like that disempowered, like, she had these expectations. She never shared them with me. But, in all fairness, she grew up in an environment where she was very quiet. So she would be quiet and then she'd burst. And I
And
can
that was
relate to
me.
that.
That was
Yeah,
me.
that
Yeah.
was that was my dad for sure. So our parents were opposite in the sense like my mom was the yeller, spanker, particularly had a big swings of emotion. My dad was very conflict avoidant, hate like never really said what he needed, would keep everything under wraps, very surface level conversation. But then when he would blow, Not he
Mhm.
would never get physical. He never hit me, but like you sort of like my grandmother, like when you knew she spoke up, you were like, all right, I'm fucking listening.
Yeah, that was me in my household. When I lost my shit, everyone was like, "Oh, it's getting real." Like everybody run for the hills because mom lost it. Like she's the calm one. And me bottling all of that up, right? Trying to be the calm and safe parent. I was over mothering my kids. I was mothering my husband without
Mhm.
realizing it because I thought that he wanted me to do all of these things when what he really wanted and what I really needed was I needed to be able to receive. I needed to be able to let him give to me. I needed to be able to let him provide for me and for me to relax more into being a mom and being a wife. And yes, working because I'm very passionate about helping people and helping them heal and medicine and now relationships and nervous system and all those things, but doing it in a way that I wasn't burning myself out and ignoring what I needed.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, I'm thinking of a couple examples that have shown up for me in relationship to someone that I'm getting to know, and but I'd love to hear, especially because I think there's specifically women listening to this podcast who go, I wouldn't know how to get from here to there. Like, yes, I can relate to what you're saying, Caleb. Like, I'm over mothering. I'm the one who's all up in
Yeah.
everybody's business. I'm the one who's packing the lunches and paying the bills and running to the grocery store and making that this that and the other thing. And I'm just going 90 miles an hour and there's not enough time for me. And sure, it sounds nice to be able to like relax into him and let him provide for me and protect me and all of these things that are innately what we women desire, and it's what we see in romantic comedies and in the books we read where it's like, oh, he just knows, like, um
That's such
what is
bullshit,
that?
by the way. That's such like real life does not happen like that. People are not like everybody's not all super mature and always knows what you need. It's such a process to tell them. First, you have to learn it yourself, right? And then communicate that to them. I
Mhm.
think it shows that you're still struggling if you're, and I am very notorious for this, still expecting them to know. That was the thing on repeat in my head. He should know, especially after being together for so long. He should know by now. Can't he see how hard I'm struggling? But I
Mhm.
really like your question because yeah, I make it sound really easy, but it's not. It's like it's a process. And so you have to start with really little things. What one thing can you let go of control this week where you're like, you know what? I know that I want to do this for a date, or I want this for dinner this week, or whatever it is. Like, what one little thing can I take off my plate and put on his? And
Mhm.
then positive reinforcement helps a lot because when we're so hard on ourselves and we're doing all the things, I unintentionally was putting those same expectations on him and then being like judgmental and critical of him. So when I kind of reined that in a little bit for myself and then started to just like, okay, when he did the dishes, I'd be like, thank you for doing the dishes. Like that was really helpful. That takes one thing off my plate. Like I appreciate you. Such a tiny thing, right? The words of affirmation or kisses and hugs and just like here are the things that make me feel really good. This made me really happy that you did this. Do more of that,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Less of the, I need you to do this and you should be doing that and you should be doing this, and more of like taking time alone to like navigate what do I need? What would make me feel good? What can I let go of? How can I let go of that? Okay, does it really matter if dinner's not cooked the way that I would cook it? No. So let me just tell him I'd rather, like, I would like you to get the food for dinner tonight. Here are the things that we need, like, whatever the case may be.
Hmm.
It's like relinquishing what little amount of control you can and just continuing to repeat that practice until it gets into bigger things.
Hmm.
Like when I started working with you and when I hired you and I worked with you for, I think it was like 9 months. And I used to work full time as a PA. And then I started dropping my time down. So I started working 3 days a week
Hmm.
and then 2 days a week. And then over the course of events, I ended up stepping away and just going full into the coaching space. And that's really hard when I've been essentially providing for myself. And then
Financially.
now, yeah, financially, like knowing that regardless of how much he brought in, I can bring in plenty on my own. And so to like let that control go
Hmm.
has been really uncomfortable. And that didn't happen overnight. Like
Yeah, no.
this was a process.
Yeah, and I think too, I remember being behind the scenes of like, it was a conversation of, hey, if you want the best version of Kayla and you want me to be the best wife and the best mom that I can be, it's going to require that I step back from this work environment that is no longer supportive to us. And the only advantage is money, right? And
Yeah,
it's sort of like
that's it.
I was in an experience recently where it's like, do I sell my soul to the devil or do I and literally feel dysregulated and I found myself like crying in the bathroom and like all this stupid shit just for a couple bucks? Or would it make the most sense, like in your case, to go to your husband and say, and I remember you saying something like, I'd really love to lean on you at this time. Like, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know financially if we can make it happen, but like, what would it look like if I step back? And I remember the conversation that like he ended up coming back to you like very shortly afterwards, energetic, and was like, I have a great idea. And then you
Mhm.
guys were able to financially lean on some things that, were to your advantage to be able to say, okay, you know what? This will get us through for a period of time and it'll give you a chance to go all in on your business and start working with Katie. And then, um,
Yes.
and then to be able to, in your case, like take the mornings to go a little bit slower, meditate, visualize, walk the beach, spend time with the kids, prepare food, like do the things that make you feel good so that you can be there for him. And I feel like, as somebody who has been single, yes, I've been in relationships like on and off, but I think having having to rely solely on myself and not having, parents who I necessarily can trust and rely on.
Mhm. Yeah, that was the theme this weekend. Like I poured my heart out to my dad, just telling him, right? Because like they're getting a divorce, which is good for them. This is good. They're not good together. And I want them to enjoy some of their life. But it's hard to admit those things and to share those things and to like to say that this is not working anymore and here's how I feel. And
Well, and I think for me, what I was getting into was like to not be able to rely on a partner, right? And to not be able to rely on parents who, you know, there's that phrase like they're doing the best that they can. But for me, my experience is that they're not doing the best. They're not even doing the best that they can. So back to this quality of like masculine and feminine energy, I have found, and I think a lot of listeners can validate this for themselves. It's like when you don't have a partner, you really fall into that hyper masculine role, that real hyper independent, I can do it myself, I don't need anybody. And that was me probably in my 20s, which makes sense why I got into a relationship in my 20s with somebody who was very alpha male. And unfortunately later was diagnosed with narcissism, so it makes sense, right? Why I would be attracted to that, like, then. But I think and I was even on a date, a couple, was like Memorial Day weekend, and I said to him, one thing that I am trying to do differently is to date from a place of never been hurt before. And I said, because we've all been hurt in some way, shape, or form. But for me, I really love to go into this relationship with you, whatever it may be, from a place of open heartedness. And that's the feminine. That's the feeling. That is like, and don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean I don't get triggered as fuck. Like, and sometimes I bring it to him and sometimes I don't. I have somebody who acts like a mom for me, who I love her because she also can play the role of masculine and feminine, of being like, okay, if you're feeling a particular way about something he's doing or not doing, let's talk it out first before you then bring it to him. And I think the value added in that is that I am responsive versus reactive, because the way I grew up, predominantly living with mom who was very reactive and not getting my needs met from her consistently, can often, when someone changes their tone of voice, be it over text or be it in person, whether they cancel plans, like, even if they give me a heads up, right, it can bring this whoom, like, just this rush of like, I need to protect myself, I'm not safe, like, does this person even like me, and this can show up in relationship to clients too. Like, if a
I
client,
was gonna say, I feel like we've navigated that even like as working partners together. And I
yeah,
think it also shows how much we've grown by being able to come to each other in those vulnerable moments and say, I don't have a lot of energy this week. Like,
yeah,
can I lean into you? Right. And
right,
vice versa. And then also like, can I have some words of affirmation this week?
mm-hmm.
Can you reassure me that I don't suck and that I am doing enough?
Yeah,
Right. Like
it's
you shared that story of feeling like you didn't have, right, not having that partner. And like, I would love to hear from you, like how it has felt to have, I'm not a male partner, right? But I am
right.
a partner in crime in helping our coaching clients and building these awesome things, helping our clients have more energy and find that better balance of energy for themselves. Like, how has it felt to you to like grow together more as like friends and partners in that aspect over the last 6+ months
Mm.
to feel like you've had a partner? Like, what is that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to share that. I just want to finish the sentence I was saying about clients, because I feel like this, if anybody has been through that experience of having to be sort of waiting for the other shoe to drop, it can come up with clients too. So I'll just finish that part and then I'll answer your question, which is, when it comes to this waiting for the other shoe to drop or being reactive, it can show up even before you sign the client. So, like, let's say the client says they want to work with you, your brain can go to that like wounded feminine of like, they're probably not going to work with me. Why would they work with me? They said yes, but are they really meaning no? Because that shows up in relationship to men. I've noticed for me too. It's like, are they saying one thing and doing another? Had and so what I've found is a lot of clients who have been in sort of this narcissism codependent role, be it with their parents and or with their partners, is I really encourage them to do a consultation ahead of time so that they can check in with their body and check in with themselves after, to say, did I feel like I was trying too hard? Did I feel like I was trying to do more or say more or be more just so that they would sign on? Because that's always an indication for me with clients as well as dating, to not pursue things. Like, I'm like, if I walk away from a date and or a consultation and I feel like I was 100% myself, I felt like I had more energy versus less, that is a really great indication for me that I can move forward and should move forward with this person, again, be it a client or be it somebody romantically. And I think that every time I have followed my own intuition by, again, listening to my body, checking in, okay, Did I feel less than? Did I feel like I didn't do too enough? Did I feel like I did too much? That whole like questioning of self, the, again, the disempowered feminine energy is like, oh, then that is a red flag for me that I need to not pursue this in any way, shape, or form, be it again, romantic or client. And I think something that you just brought up in terms of our relationship, I think it reminded me of a conversation that I had again with this guy. He goes, I heard this theory the other day that if like you go to your partner and you say, I'm at 10% today. Like, what are you at? And the person's like, I'm at 80. And then you can be like, oh, okay, come here. Like, let's figure out what I can take off your plate, or can I give you a hug, or like, what are the things I can do to support you? And I think when I heard him say that, I immediately thought of you and our relationship, because as you come on the team to coach, yes, there's been aspects of you jumping into a podcast, you coaching within Sex, Love, and Money, you coaching within the Energetic Entrepreneur. Like, we're doing these groups together, as well as you private coaching some of my clients as well. And I think the advantage of that is that there has, for us, has had to be a lot of extra communication, right? Of like, hey, on a scale of 1 to 100, where are you at today? And it's like, oh, I'm at 10%. Okay, cool. What can I take off your plate? And I know we're going to do another episode on cycle syncing, but I think the advantage for you and I is, knock on wood, our cycles have not synced up yet. We spend so much time together. So I think what's fascinating about that is that it's really allowed you and I to just communicate with each other. Like, and I think one of the things for anybody who has employees and or teams, one of the things that I think Kayla and I do really well is we voice memo each other. And if it's important um, to not voice memo, but rather get on the phone, we do that. And that is like hard and fast rule for us. And I think I do that in romantic relationships too. It's like, I'm not going to ever text something that's super important. I am going to pick up the phone and have a conversation, or just say it in person. And unfortunately or fortunately, you're in Florida and I'm in New Hampshire, so it doesn't give us the ability to meet face to face, but we often will just pick up the phone and call each other and have an important conversation. And sometimes it's like, hey, it might be, I'm making this up, but like, I didn't really love the way that you wanted me to do XYZ, but I wanted to do it this way. Or, hey, we're creating this new thing, should we do it this way or that way? And I think the advantage to using our voices is, one, like you said, we both get to feel heard. And we're both able to say to each other, hey, I'm about to get my period. I tend to be really anxious in my head. I also tend to be very creative during this time. Let's make no decisions on business. You've started to get into this
Yeah.
rhythm with you. You hear me. I get very creative the week before my period, the week of my period, and then I'm always like, but Kayla, do not pull a trigger on any of this. Like, this is just me
Yeah.
bouncing ideas off your head. Like, don't, we're not committing to it. We should not make a sales page. We should not start talking about this on social. This is
Yeah.
just a chance for
It's
me
where
to,
it benefits to be on opposite cycles because we
yes.
can rein each other and be like, that's a great idea. And let's put it on the list to come back to it maybe in a week or two. See
Yeah.
if
What
it
do you
still
feel?
resonates
Yeah.
or
What
not.
do you feel like has resonated for you in terms of, like you said, kind of having this be its own partnership in itself, right? Like,
Hmm.
yes, you're married, and
Hmm.
and yet we have our own commitment, so to speak, as it relates to collaborating in my business together and creating,
Hmm.
a lot of amazing programs and private coaching and things for people, so they get both sides of the coin. They get the relationship coaching, they get the business
Yeah.
coaching, they get to hear real life experiences of being married versus single or
Hmm.
dating. They get to hear about your medical background and cycle syncing,
Hmm.
and and there's just so much knowledge, and you and I have talked about this, and I think this can really be important for a lot of people. When you have two creative people who have so many ideas and can talk on so many different things, it can be a little confusing for some people as to, how do I get all these ideas out? And we just make it work. It really does just work. But in terms of, I'm going to ask you the same question back, in terms of our partnership, what do you feel like would be really helpful for listeners to hear that they can take within their own teams, be it team being at home or team being, within their work?
Yeah, I think listening to the body is the number one thing that has come up between you and I. And what I mean by that is when I have all these ideas, and if I feel like I'm in a state of urgency and rush, 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 like I gotta put all these into action now, or I won't be able to make it happen. Like maybe I won't follow through, right? Maybe maybe there's a fear of failure back there, but it's the practice of checking in and like, do I feel relaxed?
Mm,
Right? Do I need to talk? Maybe I need to actually take some time and like journal on these ideas and get really clear on what feels really good and supportive to my life, and then how that intermingles with the other person, rather than just, oh, I got this brilliant idea, I got to get it out, I have to share it right away immediately. I think the practice that you and I have really been doing a lot that I think would be really helpful for especially people who lead a team. I mean, one is like being open to the ideas, right? Like, I don't think you and I ever shut anything down from each other, and I find that really supportive.
yeah. It's like
And then,
it's a not right now versus a no.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like oh, okay, that's a great idea. Like,
Mhm.
let's put this in the pool and let it marinate and see like
What
what it
comes.
does.
Yeah.
And then it's then taking the time to actually consider those ideas and consider the people involved. How will this work best for everyone involved? And then how can I put that into action? It's kind of like that three-step process. I got
Mm.
the idea. I'm not going to just shut the idea off. Now let me sit with it, see kind of what comes up. And then thinking, how can I implement this and actually have it work? Like looking ahead instead of just, okay, this feels good in the moment. Let me just take action on this right now. It's actually just really, I think slowing down is the big thing.
Yeah, something I gave a client who works with her husband. I said to her, I was like, "You guys, chances are you guys are probably talking about work a lot, and it's probably interfering with your sex life, if I had to guess, right?" And she was like, "Yeah." She was like, "We're just always talking about work," and I feel like when you just said that part about it kind of goes back to what I said earlier about when I check in with Di, my mentor and coach, versus like going to the person that I'm dating is like nothing's wrong, so to speak. It's just like I'm having a lot of emotions. And so the same advice that I'm sharing with you all now is the same advice that I give myself. It's the same advice that I think when I was coaching Kayla, gave this advice to her as well as this other client, which is exactly what Kayla just said. Is like, can you take a moment to get quiet with yourself and let those voices talk, whether it's getting them down on paper, whether you have the ability to text message, audio message your coach, something to get it out. Because I think the old way of being is that I used to, in order to feel close to someone, again, be it a friendship, be it at work, be it a romantic partnership, is like I would tell them everything. And it's sort of like you just get everything out and then whew, you feel better. But what you don't realize is you shat all over the person next to you. And they're like, I wasn't even ready for this. And so really, I think one thing that we've done a great job at too is being like, hey, are you in a place where you can hear this? Or like, hey, I've got a lot of ideas coming up. Like you even text me last week and was like, hey, a lot of stuff is coming up this week for me. I'd love to talk it through with you. And I looked at my calendar and I was like, there's no fuck. I don't have a minute to myself this week. And for me, speaking of cycle syncing, was in follicular, had a lot of energy. So I like maxed out my calendar because I needed to and wanted to. Whereas like this week I'm in ovulation with even more energy, but it's very low, chill. And I was like, hey, let's talk Monday. Like, let's do the podcast and then we can talk about it after on my way to the beach because I need to
Mhm.
come down from how much was going on during the week. So I think it is really helpful, like you said, to just kind of check in with your body, get quiet. It's this whole responsive versus reactive. And I think kind of to close out the episode a little bit here is like, you know, being able to recognize these sort of qualities and characteristics within yourself is crucial to your own personal growth. It creates better relationships with yourself. It creates better relationships with other people, better relationships with money, God, you name it, right? But then to take it a step further, what we described to you is being able to be very specific. Oh, that's a disempowered feminine quality. Oh, that's an empowered feminine quality. Okay, and for you, and what I'm observing is that like having a balance of the empowered and the feminine masculine energy is super supportive while also accepting that sometimes I'm gonna be in my disempowered. And to
Yeah.
not shit on it or not shame it, but rather to be like, okay, what is it trying to tell me? And so I
Mhm.
will write it a letter. When that anxiety or that fear is like, hi, okay, so we have a lot of questions and we want to tell you that we're afraid that blah, blah. And I'm like, ah! And
You
I
need to see
want to
Inside
shut the
Out too.
door.
It's like anxiety, just going.
I'm like, please shut the fuck up and let me just be happy. It's like in the movie Inside Out. But instead, I'm like, and I do this with every client too. It's like, let's take a beat. Let's take a minute to write a letter and let that feeling, that quality, that characteristic tell you a story. Um, and I'll give you a quick example. Had a client coaching call privately a couple weeks ago. She says, I don't know. I'm just sort of in this energy like, fuck you. I'm gonna get the private jet. I'm gonna do this. And she doesn't talk like this, by the way, but this is sort of the attitude she's giving. She was like, I'm like, no one's out here saving me. I'm just gonna do it my own. Like, and I'm exaggerating. She's a quieter soul, so she was very quiet when she was saying this, but it was very loud what she was saying, so to speak, right? It was, I kind of wrote it down. It was like, you shouldn't be resting, you should be working harder, you need to go, fuck them all, I'll show them. And so when she kind of came out of it and took a breath, I said to her, I was like, you remember I showed you masculine, feminine energy, disempowered, masculine, disempowered and empowered. She goes, yeah. I go, so what voice do you feel like that was? And she was like, oh shit, disempowered masculine. And I was like, yeah, the hustle, the grind, the go, fuck them all, I got it. I was like, that energy is not helping you get any closer to your goals.
Mhm.
But if you look at it as a quadrant, empowered masculine on the top, empowered feminine on the top, disempowered on the lower left, disempowered feminine on the lower right. I was like, all you need to do, baby, is just draw a straight line from the left corner of disempowered masculine all the way up to empowered feminine. I was like, where can we be playful with this? Where can we feel into like, I mean, it is going to be pretty sick when I'm sitting on the jet, like, I'm like, if
I
that's
know.
what you want. I was like, where can we kind of have that attitude, but also pay attention to that voice
Yeah.
that's like, fuck them. I'm
I think
like,
that's why, to put it simply, like when you look at it, because again, like the words can get really overwhelming, disempowered, empowered,
yes.
masculine, feminine, right? It's like, am I in a healthy doing or am I in an unhealthy doing energy right now? Right,
Oh, I
masculine.
love that better.
Am I in a healthy feeling or am I in a unhealthy feeling, right? Meaning, am I letting myself get sad and down on myself because I'm being negative on myself? And in that state, I need the healthy doing to come in. All right, what's one little practice that I can do to move through this? And then vice versa. If you're in the unhealthy doing, I have to push, I have to force. Okay, let's get on the feeling side. What feelings am I trying to cover up? What do
Mm,
I actually need to take a beat to feel here? Oh, I'm angry. Let me go feel some anger. Let me go rage to some music in my car. Let me go yell. Let me go punch a pillow, throw the pillow on the floor, right? So you have, am I in the healthy or unhealthy doing? Or
yes,
am I in the healthy or unhealthy feeling? And then the antidote to the unhealthy is to bring in the opposite healthy. So a
absolutely.
small doing action for the feminine or the feeling, and a small allow yourself to feel when you're on the unhealthy doing. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. And here's what I think we should do. I have a creative idea. Let's link website below in the show notes where Kayla and I are going to record a more in depth video for you guys that literally you'll see the visual of like healthy doing, healthy feeling, and we'll show you how to get from one to the other. Because believe me, baby, you're going to be in those unhealthy doing and feeling parts and be like, what did Kayla and Katie say again? So we're gonna give you. It'll be like 27 bucks, super cheap, but you'll have lifetime access to it, and we'll literally show you the visual of how do you move from here to there, and then what are things you can be saying to yourself, and then what are things you can be doing for yourself that will help you get out of maybe that unhealthy, overwhelmed, stuck state and move into this place of like, okay, yeah, I feel pretty great. Like, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Less ADHD paralysis, more taking action.
Amen. Well, with that being said, everybody, click the link below. We will record this video so then that way you guys can check it out, save it, send this episode to a friend who you just feel like they could really use the reminder of healthy doing and healthy feeling and healthy being and all that. But with that being said, if you really resonate with this episode, please feel free to leave a review at the bottom. It helps more people see that this podcast is something that could be really helpful for them. So we're sending you guys a lot of love in health and happiness.